All right, we're live now. Hello and welcome everyone. This is Rashmi from Designhill and your host for the day. Welcome to this yet another Designhill event wherein we are going to talk about the new era of content marketing and planning for 2021. I hope everyone is doing great, staying safe and taking care of your friends and families. I would love to know where you all are joining us from. So do let us know that in the chat section. Today's event is brought to you by Designhill, which is the world's leading creative marketplace that caters to the creative needs of individuals and businesses alike, who can source high quality designs from professional designers and buy unique products created by independent artists from around the world, which is called Print Shop by Designhill. We have an expert panel with us here today who are going to share some amazing tips on content strategies. So let me quickly introduce all our speakers for the day. To start with, we have Adat LB with us. Adat LB is a B2B marketing strategist and CEO of Marketing Interactions, where she creates personas and persona driven content marketing and sales enablement strategies for her clients. She has written two books, Digital Relevance and E-Marketing Strategies for the Complex Sale, and is often found speaking at industry events, leading workshops, and on the list of the top B2B industry experts to follow. Ardat, would you like to go ahead and say a quick hi to the audience?
Hi, thanks so much for having me. It's fun to be here.
Great. Next, we have Amy Belliot with us. Amy is the CEO and founder of the creative content agency called Killer Visual Strategies. She owned her first company, a candy store and an ice cream parlor at the age of 17 before heading off for college. She subsequently built a successful career in SEO and marketing and headed up SEO at several companies before launching Killer in 2010. In the years since, she has grown Killer Visual Strategies to become the industry leader in visual communication, a driving visual strategy, and creative content campaign for global brands including Microsoft, Adobe, Starbucks, and many more. Amy, would you like to go ahead and say hi to the audience?
Yep, took me a second to find that mute. Unmute. Hi, everybody. Thanks for having me.
Wonderful. Next, we have Chad Lakin with us. Chad Lakin is a vice president of North America for SUSA, which is one of the world's fastest growing startup. He has many years of expertise in design, digital media, and strategy. He is heading up the company's US office to help bring more of storytelling through video to more brand managers and people around the globe. Chad.
Hello, everybody. It's great to be here.
Next, we have Kevin Dorte with us. Kevin is a marketeer and storyteller for Beyond, which is a cloud-based animation studio that allows anybody to make media that moves. An alumnus of UCLA's School of Theatre, Film and Television, Kevin specializes in using storytelling principles from the entertainment industry to create powerful brand engagement. As a certified agile facilitator, Kevin enjoys empowering teams to spark meaningful value for their audiences. Kevin.
Yeah, hi everyone. Looking forward to today.
Last, we have Noz Urbina with us. Noz Urbina is a globally recognized leader in the field of content strategy and customer experience. He is well known as a pioneer in customer journey mapping and adaptive content modeling for delivering personalized, contextually relevant content experiences in an omnichannel environment. Noz is the co-founder and program director of Omnichannel X and its online and offline events. He is also a co-author of the book Content Strategy, Connecting the Dots Between Business, Brands, and Benefit. Noz. Noz, you are on mute.
Hi, everybody. Looking forward to a great conversation.
Great. So before we start, I have a few announcements to make. We are giving away certificates to all the attendees who will be staying with us till the end of the session. So make sure you stick to the end. Also, you can take the screenshot of this session and post it on Twitter. Use hashtag Designhill Events, tag Designhill DH, and all our speakers who are here today. And I will be sharing the social media handles of all the speakers in the chat section. And one lucky winner will have a chance to win a print shop gift card worth $50. Also, we'll be sharing an exclusive coupon code with everyone at the end of the session, using which you can avail a 50% off on Designhill contest service and build your brand. All right, so those were quick announcements that I had to make. Before we start, let's quickly look at what Designhill is all about, and then we'll start the session. In the meantime, as the topic is about content marketing and planning, if you have any question, make sure you put your questions in the questions tab. Give me a second, please.
Looking to get your boss to remember your name? Head to the world's #1 creative marketplace, Designhill.
When my company promoted me to head up our latest real estate development project, I was excited, then anxious, then petrified. How was I going to hire the team, get the designs completed, and design beautiful presentation materials on our lean budget while impressing my bosses, some of whom are still learning my name?
Good job, Mitch.
My name's Lawrence. That's why I went to Designhill and got the design help I needed that fit within my company's brand guidelines. The process was simple. Designhill's design contest ensured I'd get a ton of results I'd love. Start by picking a number of designs that inspire you. This one's good, and that name's Lawrence. That's why I went to Designhill and got the design help I needed that fit within my company's brand guidelines. The process was simple. Designhill's design contest ensured I'd get a ton of results I'd love. Start by picking a number of designs that inspire you. This one's good, and that one. This one speaks to me. Then share some information about the project. Lastly, pick a package that fits your budget. Do you just want a logo, or do you want it all? Then, boom. I got more than 60 custom design options to choose from, as well as all the other graphic design assets I wanted. And it's all backed by Designhill's 100% money-back guarantee. If I don't find a design I like, I get my money back. You can't lose. Now I have what I need to make a splash in my meetings, with everything from business cards, pamphlets, posters, and more. It's real.
Let the world know it's real and build your brand with Designhill.
All right, that was a quick introduction about Designhill, and now we are all set to start the session. So before we will take up questions in the end from the audience as well. So make sure you put your questions in the question section. And one of my colleague, a friend of mine who happened to who had to be here, is facing some technical issues. So please bear with me. I'm taking a little bit of time here and there to coordinate. So let's get this rolling, everyone. Let me start with Amy, with the first question, and I'll take the same question to the other panelists as well to add on their opinions on the same question. So, Amy, before we move to the content marketing trends in 2021, which is the topic today, let's talk about the fundamental aspect of content marketing. For a lot of people out there, still content marketing is about writing 500 word article using some nice keywords that can help them rank on Google, and they are done. But I'm sure it is more than that. Could you please talk about what content marketing actually is and what it is not, and how it has evolved over last 5-7 years?
Yeah, definitely. So, the best way to think about content marketing in my mind is every piece of content that you produce is a doorway into your brand. And so the idea is produce content that can meet your customers where they live, produce content that's truly going to engage that customer, that's going to get them excited about your brand, and produce content that really educates them at every level of the conversion funnel. So a lot of content marketing is at the top level of that conversion funnel first. It's about getting your name out there, getting the attention and engagement of your audience. And when you're doing top of funnel content marketing, you really need to focus on creating content that meets the quality standards of your end audience as well. HubSpot put out an amazing stat that I really love to share, which is 94% of first impressions of your brand or service are based entirely on design. And 91% of audiences today demand visual content as their primary, secondary, and tertiary form of information delivery from the audiences, or from the brands that are trying to connect with them. So content marketing is about creating great media, not just writing keyword stuffed content. Yes, text is still important because you got to write stuff that shares a lot about your company and a lot about your brand and service, and you have to also write something that the search engines can read. But ultimately, content marketing is about delivering great content to your audience based on what they demand most.
Thank you so much, Amy. Kevin, would you like to add to that? How do you feel content marketing has evolved in the last 5, 7 years, and what changes do you see?
Well, thinking about how it's changed, I feel like, everything changed last year. That feels like the understatement of the year. And despite that, I feel like we're just going to see a revival of old principles. I think the need to be adaptive is going to be more important than ever. The need to be customer or audience centric is going to be more important than ever. And we're going to see storytelling have another moment. And it makes sense because, we as a global community have had these shared experiences of loss, trauma, fear, etc. And it's time to sort of speak to those shared experiences and spark authentic connections with our audiences.
Great. Thank you so much, Kevin. Noz, let me take the next question to you. So the year, as Kevin also talked about, the year 2020 has been a crazy year for all the businesses around the world. How companies used to do business and communicate with their customer has been changed drastically. Let's talk about what's trending in the field of content marketing to embrace this shift. So the question is, what are the latest emerging global content trends that are defining the direction of this industry right now?
Well, I think that the situation that we're in has done a few things. First of all, it's hyper accelerated our global competitive landscape. So I think no matter what industry you're in, your ability to kind of have an international or an online competitor has been amped up. We've been talking about this for 20, 25 years, but it's just been kind of a brick on the accelerator pedal to bring in all of the kind of changes we've been talking about: digital experience, about having a coherent omni-channel presence. So I think the biggest thing I'm hearing is instead of trying to endorse the idea of omni-channel coherence and cohesive brand identity, customers are running desperately to me saying, how do we get a hold of this? Because they need to stand out much more than they did before. So it's this kind of absolute make or break need to be able to present their personalities in a way that is consistent across all of their various touch points, and orchestrate that in a centralized way so they can maintain real relationships through all of these channels without letting them become fragmented and disorienting.
Sorry, I muted myself again. So thank you so much, Naz. Adat, I would like to take the same question to you. Would you like to add to what Naz had to say about the new trends that you see after the pandemic, and how do you feel like how businesses are preparing themselves, for the changes?
Yeah, in addition to what Naz has said, I mean, obviously there's way more noise online because it's the only way we have to communicate. So it's now a much bigger challenge to get attention, not only to get it, but to keep it. And one of the things that's really interesting to me is the need for interactive content, the need to actually help your buyers and audience participate and build their own stories. And so I thought it was really interesting. Corporate Visions just spun off a new venture called Design Labs. And one of the first things they looked at was the question of, does interactive content motivate buyers? And so they did this study, and what they found was they had one group who participated in an interactive experience and another group that read a static white paper. And what they saw when they were monitoring their brain waves is that the people who were engaging in the interactive piece, even though they experienced a little tension and anxiety, were more excited, more enthusiastic, more engaged. And Dr. Carmen Simon, when she was reviewing the results, found that there was a realization period, a learning where it's kind of a light bulb went on, And at the end, when they went back after the fact and asked, 55% of both groups had thought about the content twice, but 18% of the people in the interactive had thought about it more than 3 times. And so it just goes to show that if you want to make an impression, you have to do something to engage people. Otherwise, all it is, pass drive-by viewing, I call it. They stop by and say, thanks so much, and they move on to the next piece. So if you want to have an impression and engage them, I think we have to think about more interactive ways to do that. Co-creating solutions, value assessments, ROI calculators, virtual product tours, right? As Amy was talking about visual, being able to spin your product around 360 and allow buyers to dive into the features that they want to know more about. So there's a lot of ways to do that, but I think we have to really think about how do we match context and how do we invite participation.
Thank you so much, Adad, for sharing that point across. So, Chad, let me take the next question to you. Is anybody saying anything? I have been facing a little issue with the connectivity here. So I think there's a little bit of lag from my end. So just in case I'm interrupting anyone, please let me know. I'm facing a little bit of connectivity issue. I'm so sorry about that. So let me take the next question to Chad. So I was reading an article around the new trends in content marketing, and it said that new digital habits have been formed by the consumers due to the pandemic, and there has been a rise in private social media communities. What do you think? How building a community and providing a space for real-time connection, how is it going to help business in today's time?
That's a great question. So I think we've seen this with the rise of things like Clubhouse, right now as well. My wife got onto it. She invited me along. I felt special. And I think what we found too, even with, the past year and really looking at tech censorship and just sort of some of the stuff that's happening there, it's driving people into these more niche conversations, and you're going to see probably more and more of that. We've been a part of the global conversation. We've been a part of the larger conversation. And now people want to find their tribe. Right? It's just kind of like Facebook groups in a way, or LinkedIn groups, but now we're having purpose-built apps for that. The challenge with that, I think, is that we don't want to obviously segment the world and discriminate people and feel like they can't interact within other sort of conversations too. So as a brand, I think you need to keep your eye on these new platforms, figure out what makes sense as far as the level of conversation that you're going to have. I think Clubhouse is really interesting. And someone was telling me about the other day, I'm not a super hip guy that's across every platform that comes out, right? And so I think my wife was telling me about it, and I was like, that sounds like a 1980s conference call with the CEO, and everyone's just, dialing in. But people are looking for something that's different now, right? And I think we can even see that we all had to jump on video this past year. Everyone had to get comfortable being in front of camera, and we're in the video space, right? So I'm really passionate about this. I want people to be comfortable. I want them to understand that what's happening right now is building connection because we're seeing each other's faces, not just a headshot. But then I think we found that people got fatigued with that. And I think that's really where like the rise of Clubhouse came in was, I don't have to blow dry my hair. I can just get on and have a audio experience as well. So I'd say be aware of what's happening out there. Look at the trending apps and then figure out what makes sense for your brand. You don't need to engage in every platform, but just figure out where your audience is and how you can be a part of that conversation.
Thank you so much, Chad, about that. Naz, would you like to add to that how communities can help businesses and all these brands out there who do not have a community yet, how can they go about starting one?
I've always found community building to be challenging. For me, the reason that I have kind of always brought in community specialists for community building is because of the nurturing that it requires. I think that a lot of us have always tried to create communities by throwing out capabilities, putting up a platform, throwing on some ads and saying, people talk to each other. But the fact is, if your brand is not participating, starting the conversation, then the community will never flourish. I call it the empty dance floor effect. No matter how great the lights and music are, it takes something to get people out there. And so I think people underestimate the community building. The emphasis is on building, not community. So you're never going to get to the community bit unless you put in the hours, the effort, the attention to really reach out and think, why are people going to engage? What are they going to engage with? And the first early adopters, what is their reward for actually bothering? So I think that's my number one tip for community building.
Can I ask Naz, where should people start with that? Because I think, and by the way, I'm just excited to learn from all you guys today. So I'm selfishly on this panel because I'm like, yeah, okay, I'm going to ask all my questions now. Where should you start with that? Because I think we've tried to do it in the past and probably had the empty dance floor effect. So if we're a brand that's going, hey, I want to build some of these more micro communities, should we be looking at platforms? Should we be thinking about LinkedIn groups? How do we start engaging them so they interact within a platform?
I think, ironically, the beginning of community is content. So the early adopters of the community have to have something to look at. So you have to fill the dance floor. You have to get out there, and you have to be having the conversations with your, I don't want to say your closest customer relationships, maybe your partner network. I don't know what your environment is, but let's say whoever you have who will engage with you in the discussion, even if it's your own internal people, starting that conversation with each other in a more public forum, that community has to be started and you have to jumpstart it. So you have to invest in creating a value-added discussion. I think that's also, you need to pay attention to what are the categories of discussion. So what are, is it a blank slate, or what are the discussion groups that are going to be there when I step in? So I think again, it's not about tech or platform. I think you can create an effective community, whatever the platform, if you drive attention to it, so if you market it properly, and then if you have value-added content. I think when I was asked earlier about the trends for this year and content marketing, the thing was on the tip of my tongue that I didn't say was value-added. I think as all marketers, I'm getting lots of nods here, as marketers, we have to make that shift from an advertising mentality, the hey, look at me, to look at what you can do if you bother to engage with what I'm telling you. So if you can't think of something useful to contribute, or you can't show that you're going to be useful and help them in their whatever their goals are, then people won't engage. Or as our artist said, they might engage, but they'll go, oh, look at that, and then you'll be passed by.
Great. Thank you so much, Naz, for answering that. Let me take the next question to Adat, and the same question I'll take to Amy as well to add on her opinion. So, Adat, let's talk about the return on investments. As organizations are tight on budget and businesses are going to be increasingly vigilant about expecting return on their content marketing investment, how do marketers track and ensure that the ROI is there in such a scenario where there are budget constraints?
Well, I can speak to that. I've been interim VP of marketing for a client called Modus. They sell a sales enablement platform for the last year. And because of COVID, my budget was non-existent. So everything we did had to be done organically in-house. And I was the only writer there. So, and I had a marketing ops person. I mean, they stripped marketing down to whatever. And so it's about building community, going back to that, creating participation, being out on the platforms and sharing ideas, asking and answering questions, getting people involved. So once again, that interactive thing. But I did a lot of research on building personas, of course, because that's what I do, and finding out what words and phrases do people use? What are the questions they're asking today? How are they feeling emotionally, especially during the pandemic? And how do we weave empathy into our content? Not in a condescending way, that's easy to do, but really thinking about, what kind of risk are they seeing now? And some of the things I learned was that we needed to shift our messaging to talk about what kind of value can we deliver right now? And it's not that they don't want the value down the road, but they're concerned about what do we do today? How do we keep our companies going? And so you need to be aware of the context of what's going on, whether it's the pandemic or any other time. And so I would just say the better you know your audience, the better you can match context and help them make forward progress in thinking about how to solve a problem, the better off you are. And it doesn't take a lot of money. I didn't have a lot of money. And so I had to use the systems I had and the ability to write and create content and you get creative about it, and we actually increased revenue year over year 12%, which isn't bad given the year we went through in 2020. And that was done without a big marketing budget.
Thank you so much, Adarth, for sharing that. Amy, I would like to take the same question to you as well. How do you see, in these times when organization has tight budget, how do marketers ensure the ROI on every content pieces that they are producing?
So I think that we've spent a long time with a very lopsided value proposition when it comes to marketing. We put a lot of our investment in promoting the content and not a lot of our investment in creating the content. And we got to flip that. And we've seen that over the past, I'd say over the past 12 months, I've seen my clients slowly start to realize, oh, if I actually just invest a little bit more money in really high quality content, I can spend very little money on marketing that content, because the entire internet is just saturated with low quality content, with really, really poor design and really, overly keyword stuffed blog posts and things like that. And so you can stand out from the crowd by putting more effort into ensuring that content, like Naz said, is value added content for the audience. And we've been talking about attention spans a lot, having to grab the attention of people while we're in an oversaturated market of content right now. And the fact is people only have a 5-second attention span. This is why I always focus on, leading with visuals. If you lead with video, for instance, we got a couple of people in this panel who are video specialists. They definitely understand video is one of the most craved pieces of content out there for audiences. They want that bite-sized content. They want to be kind of spoon-fed information because they need to be able to find a way to cut through the noise of everything that's out there. So I would say first and foremost, put your money into creating great content. Pull that money out of your budget of promoting that content, because if it's really great, it will promote itself if you get it in front of the right people first. The next big thing I would say is one of the best ways to get a really great ROI out of your content is to invest in one big piece of content that has legs to become 20 to 30 small pieces of content. I often say, for instance, invest in either a visually rich ebook, a visually rich white paper, or a motion graphic. Because if you invest in one of those three things first, the amount of illustration and artwork and content that you can pull out of that is crazy. You can create infographics out of the artwork from that. You can create animated GIFs out of the artwork from that. You can create so many other pieces of content, small social media micro narratives, and so on. So if you don't have a huge budget, invest your money in creating one really great high quality piece of content that has quite a lot of artwork to it, and then reuse that artwork to create 20 or 30 small pieces of content, because that's going to give you a better ROI and it's going to give you months of just ways to connect with your audience.
I'd like to support that answer and just add on that you're right, and I've seen it done even without the artwork. The artwork will obviously create much more engaging, reusable results, but I've seen people just do it with traditional white paper copy. It's such an important strategy. Think about how you create this one piece, and then think about how that can be adaptively broken down into drip feeds, social posts, etc. The more visual, the better, but that's the idea, is pack all your value into this I think it's called a tentpole piece, and then how you can use that, use it, reuse it, recycle it until you can't get any more value out of it.
Yeah, and I'll just echo that as well. From a video point of view, that's exactly what we advise our clients on, right? I think a lot of people are very reactive in their content, or when it comes to video, traditionally they're like, I'm going to do a $10,000 video, and then that's just one video sits on my website and does nothing. And so looking at things like, how do I cut this up? What are the different formats that I need? And just getting the most life out of that piece of content, but also look at batching your content. So everyone that's tuning in today, they're thinking, I want to get into video, it's expensive, whatever it may be. well, stop trying to think about the one video, think about how you can create multiple pieces of content at once. On the ROI side of things, I think it's really interesting, again, relating to video. I'm having a lot of conversations with our clients right now, and it's tricky with video, to be honest, and it's relative, right? And so you look at it and you go, did that video generate X amount of dollars for my business? It's not always about that. And so looking at really starting with the purpose around a piece of content. What am I trying to achieve with this piece of content? And it may not be, again, a direct numerical value to it. It could just be like, I want to increase engagement with my audience. So whatever you're going to do with the purpose, I think one place where we're maybe not seeing as much investment, and clients and companies should, is the tracking and measurement of that content. You need to know if that video performed or not. And I think a lot of times, and I was even on a call yesterday with a client, I said, is that important? Like, I'm trying to understand, like, do you guys care about analytics and hosting and all that sort of stuff? She's like, we should, because I think my gut feel is that for a lot of companies, was video successful? We made a lot of video. So job well done, mission accomplished, but they're not really seeing, is that video effective? Is it actually increasing the awareness? Is it driving leads to the website? Is it converting them? All that sort of stuff. So think about the purpose before you create anything. And that way you have something to actually measure it off of.
Yeah, and the key there is before you create it. No, I was just going to say the key there is before you create it, think about that, not after the fact and then think, oh crap, how are we going to measure that?
Exactly. And the one thing I was going to say, just to build off of that, is come up with one goal, not 20 goals for a piece of content. Like, it's really important to identify one primary goal, because that's how you can really plan the narrative of that content. That's how you can, that will inform where that content's going to live. It's going to inform so much. And when you have 2 or 3 goals, they're going to compete with each other, and you're going to produce lower quality content that won't give you an ROI.
All right. Thank you so much, everyone, for adding all of your points on the ROI question. It looks like, everyone had something or other to add. And I'm sure, guys, all these people who are listening to us today and watching this session, I hope you guys are taking notes, because these are some really amazing points coming in here. And also, if you have questions, make sure you put your questions there. We'll take them up in the last 15 minutes. Kevin, let me take this next question to you. What role, Kevin, do you think ultra local and ultra personalized kind of content is going to play in the near future, and how do you think it is going to help businesses?
Before I answer, let me make sure I'm answering the right question. Was the word localized? My internet cut out.
Yeah, that's right.
I think I can't pretend to be a transcreation or translation expert, but I can only emphasize the importance of localized content. I think a lot of it does go back to some of these high-level principles that we've been talking about having targeted outcomes for every piece of content you create, making sure that's stitched closely to existing value streams that your organization is designed to deliver. And then making it, fit the context of your audience, thinking about where they're at, what stories will reach them, what mediums will reach them, using, multimedia experiences and rich media moments to reach audiences. That's not just important for the entertainment value, it's important for engagement, it's important for telling the story in a brain-friendly way, and, it's important too for accessibility. So those are sort of, again, it gets very high level, but those principles are really important to hold when you start thinking about localization, not just translating your copy.
Yeah, thank you so much, Kevin. Anyone in the panel who would like to add to that?
Yeah, I just want to add to that too, is that just pay attention to relevance. What your audience cares about, not what you want to say, what they care about, and really, I know I've said this before, but talking to them about something that helps them make a step further in their consideration of how to solve a problem or whatever. It goes back to the jobs to be done theory. Your content should help them accomplish something, whether it's thinking differently or taking the next step or gaining a greater understanding. But the other thing I think we forget sometimes as marketers is that every time somebody interacts with their content should change. right? Because you've taught them something, or they've got a new idea, or they're now engaging. And so you can't just throw up another piece of content and say, here's more. You need to think about what's next. Given that they engage with this piece of content and these ideas, and they got this takeaway, whatever it is that you planned for the purpose of your content, what's next? And we need to connect the dots. And so you can't just throw it out there and then throw them another piece, and think, well, this is all great content. What's the context? How does it, relate together, and how does it keep building momentum with them? So I think that's, one of the most important things.
And I think that comes back to scale as well,
Thank you.
right? So you can't just have the one piece of content, because what is the next piece? And that's where you're thinking about, your content calendar and your plan and your customer journey and all that sort of stuff. What do they need to know next? And I think that's where brands need to be thinking. I think, Kevin, you mentioned on this as well, a little bit more of an agile production methodology. I can't just make the one video anymore. So how am I going to do stuff at scale so that I continue to educate my audience through that journey?
Can I jump in there?
Yeah.
For me, Chad has just dropped some really key words, especially the customer journey one. I have, in the last couple of years, been finding clients really are valuing a design methodology for content. So going through user requirements, user stories, jobs to be done, and then mapping that out over time. I like to use the term 4D content. So not just creating the kind of the piece that my customers love saying, so what's the piece? What's the blog article? What's the what's the white paper? As opposed to thinking about a human being in real life who may want different depths of content at different points across time. And once you kind of think about those 4 dimensions of experience and look at that journey and say, okay, well, at what point are they going to ask what kind of question? Because my questions when I'm just getting to know your brand may be different than when I'm when I'm familiarizing myself, or when I'm into the comparison phase, or when I'm already a customer, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So rather than looking at the buying journey, which is basically just kind of this linear happy path towards giving you money, looking at real customer journeys and what their real questions are in context, as Arda said, and progressively disclosing out the right answers for them into their context and for their moment.
Great.
Just to add to that, one of the biggest things that I think we forget about is that our buyers lack confidence. They don't know what they don't know. Everything changes so fast. Even if they bought a similar platform 5 years ago, it's not the same today. And so one of the things Gartner's found in their research is that this lack of confidence keeps them from being able to move forward. But going back to the quantity of content, think about 11 people on average in a B2B enterprise purchase decision, and they each go out with their own perspectives and do research, and they each bring back whatever content they find. None of it agrees with each other, and they don't know which do I believe. How do we help them deconflict that information and understand what's pertinent to them? And so a lot of it these days is about how do we help build confidence so that they know they're making a solid decision, a solid judgment. How do we help them get everybody on board on the same page? And that feeds in a lot to what Naz was just talking about.
All right. Thank you so much, everyone, for adding all your points there. So my next question is about video content, although Emmy and Chad also touched upon it a little bit. So let us talk about it in detail. So video content has gained super momentum in the last few years. Chad, let me take this question to you. And it is still going to rise in 2021 as well. So how do you think video marketing will evolve in the coming years to come? And what do the content creators need to be aware of and prepared for it when it comes to video content creation?
That's a loaded question, isn't it? Well, I think for the past few years, we've been saying that video content is just going to be like 90% of internet traffic and all that sort of stuff, right? So it's here to stay. I think what we saw, as I mentioned before, when the pandemic hit, was everyone had to get comfortable in front of camera, which is great. I mean, I love it because it's lowered, I think, or I should say it's leveled the playing field for a lot of people where they've been forced to get in front of camera now with Zoom calls. maybe I should try some of this more influencer type, micro influencer marketing if I'm just doing social posts on LinkedIn or whatever it may be. So that's great. I think also for a lot of brands, when it lowered the bar and leveled the playing field, there was a lower entry point for people. So for brands that felt like, I can't play in this space, I don't have a $50,000 video budget. Well, now no one had that. And everyone was doing webcam videos or iPhone videos because they couldn't engage with production companies to do this sort of stuff. So I love that because it creates more creators in the marketplace. And that's where brands really they just need to start. It's kind of like ripping a Band-Aid off a little bit. And so that's one of the blessings that came out of the pandemic, is that we had a lot more people get comfortable with storytelling and video creation. Now where we're at, and we've touched on it earlier around, we're looking for higher quality content. Okay, so we're all done with Zoom fatigue. We're done with webcam videos. We're like, okay, you got more options now. And so what's the next step up for your brand? And you need to be thinking about how you elevate the conversation, how you now take that content and go, these are my brand standards now in this environment. And so that it is looking more professional, and that's finding the right vendors that you can work with. There's a lot of creative ideas out there now. As things open up, people can shoot content safely as well. And so we're seeing that increase in quality. So it's definitely not an excuse to not do anything right now. It's actually more important than ever because people are spending more time online. We're in front of our computers more. But as is mentioned, there's so much noise out there. So how are you going to cut through that? How are you going to grab people's attention? And so just like any other piece of content, as it relates to video, understand your audience, understand what's important to them, what's their behavior like. And don't forget, like, you're a human. How do you like to consume content? That's a really good place to start as well. Do you like watching 7-minute videos, or do you like watching 30-second ones? And then don't be afraid to ask your audience as well. Like, go out there and say, hey guys, I'm thinking about doing this. The other day I threw it out to LinkedIn just on, for my network. I'm like, hey, I'm thinking about 2 types of formats for webinars, right? Because this all fits into video. So I'm like, do you guys like to do a live webinar where you're in there and we're going to do like what we're doing today? Or would you rather see a 5-minute or 7-minute video from a thought leader? It's really concise and to the point, and then do a live Q&A with them later. And I think people are like, actually, that sounds really cool. I want to do that. And I'm like, great. I've got a little bit of data now to play with and test and measure things as well. So I would say that's kind of, to summarize it, don't be afraid to get started in there. You do need to elevate the production value of what you're doing. You don't have to have a 10-person crew and a catering van to create video though, so it's okay. There's a lot of different ways to do it. Companies like Beyond, you don't even have to shoot anything, right? You can do high quality animations, and then really understand your audience. And then back to my point, test and measure that. You want to come back to your content. Give it a good, 2-3 months out in the market to give it that space to see what the trends are and the behaviors are, but then analyze that and go, okay, what worked, what didn't, what am I going to do differently next? But don't stop making content.
That was a great point that you raised, Chad, over there, which was about, there's a lot of noise out there. A lot of people are into videos these days, and how to cut through the noise was an important question. So Kevin, I would like to take the same question to you, and I would like your opinion. I would like to hear from you on that. How do you think, as we talked about, video marketing is in rise, a lot of people are creating it. How to cut through that noise?
I think Chad actually touched on a lot of the best ways to cut through the noise. And also we've talked about being adaptive, we've talked about being agile. I came from a marketing role at an organization dedicated to agile learning prior to Beyond, so it's something I'm particularly passionate about in addition to video. And I think marrying them is the best way to cut through the noise. So the principles from agility, business agility, agile software development that we're looking to apply to content creation and video production. That's a customer centricity, which I brought up before, or audience centricity in the context of content. But it's also empowering a team of creators. For so long, the content we've put out has been only produced by the best writer on the team. And that doesn't make any sense anymore, given the volume you're trying to create, the quality you're trying to reach, and the relevance that we've also mentioned that you're trying to attain. So you need to invest in capability across your team, however big or small, to make sure everyone's able to put out rich media, to put out top quality content. Everyone's a person, everyone knows the product or should know them, should know it if they're on your team. everyone can tell that story. So you want to make it so that they're able to produce videos, they're able to produce white papers, graphics, etc. And specific to the question around video, that's how you're going to create videos that are relevant, that have a point of view, and that are compelling.
All right. Thank you so much, Kevin. Naz, let me take the next question to you. So, with the increase in adoption of technology like artificial intelligence, voice search, AR, how do you think they are going to impact content marketing in 2021, and how should marketers prepare themselves?
Well, for me, the new tech discussion, I always fall back on the same answer I've been giving for 21 years now, which is these new formats will continue to come out. So the first thing I say is what not to do, and what not to do is build up a whole nother department around it. So what we've seen every time a new channel comes out is we're going to have a social media team. We have to have an app team. We have to have a website team. We have to have a content marketing team. We have to have a new events team. And when I say team, I don't mean just that you have those specialized skills within the company. I mean literally its own team with its own KPIs, its own budget, its own timelines, and very little cross communication and unified strategy. So if you are going to bring on any of these new tools, which you should, because as users start these conversations on them, you want to be there. Do not fragment your brand by creating a new way that is isolated from the rest of the conversation that you're having. Now, I think nothing frustrates users more than being led down a dead-end road. So you've created this lovely campaign, this lovely experience, and it finishes, and there's this kind of flourish that goes nowhere. So it was what I see a lot of is adoption, especially by big enterprises. They're very happy with themselves if these new technologies are just simply engaged with. Somebody looked at our thing. Vanity metrics. We got to click. We got to download. We got to view. We even got to share. So what? If this is not built into your strategy and an evolving conversation that's going somewhere, then you're throwing money away. So that's my first reaction to any new technology. And then the other thing, when my customers are coming to me asking for how they can deploy machine learning or artificial intelligence, I can tell the difference between the ones who are looking at how do I deploy this new tool within my business, and how do I give my job to a machine so I don't have to do stuff. And this is the thing with artificial intelligence is it's so new to us, it still feels magical, as many new technologies do. So we're still in that awe phase. So we have to remind ourselves that it is a technology, it is a tool, it can help us, but we are the tool wielders. So approaching artificial intelligence as a kind of I call it like infinite interns. If I had a million people in a room who are willing to do data entry for me, or to watch on forums, or to do social listening, what could I deploy a million entry-level positions to do, or a trillion? That's what artificial intelligence can do. What it can't do is replace strategic thinking or considering how this experience fits into your overall landscape. I'm coming back to the omni-channel word. The difference between being on multiple channels, multi-channel publishing or multi-channel advertising, and omni-channel is that you're closing the circle, and that you're around the customer, and you're thinking, where does this person want to go, and how do we as a brand help them as an individual or as a team get where they're trying to go?
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Naz.
Yeah,
Let's go ahead.
Yeah, I would add to that. One of the things I've been doing a lot of experimenting with lately are AI platforms like 6 Sense, for example. And what you hear a lot of people saying now is, we don't need to go talk to customers anymore. We've got all this data. We have all this AI. So, that we can just build a persona based off that, or or build content based off that or whatever. And I just want to caution you that data can tell you what somebody did, but it cannot tell you why they did it, whether it was successful for them or what have you. So the human is not going away. I'm sorry, but you can't replace human critical thinking. But the other thing too, I heard last week I attended an event and heard Nina Schick talk about her new book called Deep Fakes. And she was talking about synthetic content, right? This ability for AI to produce content. And there was a big discussion we all had about this after listening to her. And one of the things I thought about is that, AI can go out and write content for you. However, it doesn't have your brand voice in it. It doesn't have the perspective of your buyer in it. And so like Naz was saying, you can't just outsource this stuff to a machine. And so what's going to make the difference are those of us who are willing to take that AI content and say, okay, let's now infuse our brand voice. Let's infuse our buyers in here. Let's have it so if somebody sees it, they know it's from our brand. Otherwise, it's just there's going to be a lot of lazy companies out there saying, what a great piece of content, publish that. And it doesn't have anything to do with their brand or their buyers or whatever. It may be great content, but it doesn't mean anything in the context of the situation with their audience. So those are my 2 cents on that.
And if I can build off of that, we're talking about AI because it's a buzzword, and that's really where it is right now in its evolution. What happens when we start talking about AI is we often start to forget about the other big technologies that have been evolving over the past few years, like augmented reality and virtual reality. The fact is I believe people should be paying a lot more attention right now to AR and VR, because AI has a ways to go. And, just as Ardath said, you're not going to get great content from AI. I've seen the type of content that's spit out these days, even from some of the best out there. And in the end, it's not going to feel like a human wrote it just yet. In the future, 5 years from now, we can be having a completely different conversation about AI, deep fakes, the Unreal Engine, and so on. But as it stands right now, we have to focus on what can return an investment immediately now. What do I need to be paying attention to now in the technology marketplace for content today? And in my opinion, that really lives in the world of, figure out if you want or need to have a VR strategy. Figure out if you want or need to have an AR strategy, because not every brand or company out there needs VR or AR, but for some, it could add value to their audience. And then also look into interactive video, because I think that's kind of going to be something huge that is really going to start to take over, because as Chad and Kevin mentioned earlier, video is king. It's the content of all content, in my opinion. And so let's look into the technologies that really leverage what audiences want today, because AI isn't what audiences want today. It's what one day, hopefully we won't have Skynet, but one day we want AI to be working for us in the right ways, and it's going to take some time.
Can I make a distinction here?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Between AI for content production and AI for things like content tagging, content sentiment analysis, for example. Social listening is AI. Automatically looking at all the content I have in my vast, sometimes like I have 1 million objects in my repository of content, or 10 million objects. What are they about? What similarities do they have? What use could I make of them? That's AI also. So where we can get ROI from AI today is back of the house, or to help us audit things we could never audit, or look at more assets than we can ever look at, listen to more conversations more than a conversation than we could ever listen to. Not to, as now we've all said, replace us or our customer. So they're not going to be creating the content. They're not going to be having the conversations for us, or standing in for our customers. But it is, like it is like the infinite monkeys at infinite typewriters thing. It's useful to have that much raw power to say, I can't go look at all these files I've got, but I can set a machine on it for an afternoon and come back and see how it's categorized my assets for me. So there's that's one thing I wanted to add. And the other thing is that AR or mixed reality, depending on what term you like, is my favorite new medium. I think it is the best because I think it has the power of video and it can even involve video, but it's real life. It has the power of bringing together content, digital, and real life. And so that is just a creative palette like we've never seen. So I can't say enough about getting your AR chops or mixed reality chops in up and running.
Also, I have a quick follow-up question here. Although we talked about AI and VR right now, how about voice search? I mean, there is Google Voice Assistant, there is Alexa out there, and it has been used, right? So, how do you see these voice searches changing the landscape when it comes to content marketing? Anyone from the panel can answer.
I actually just finished a great book that kind of touches on that, and I won't pretend to be an expert on it. But if you want an expert opinion, go to Erica Hall's Conversational Design. And a key takeaway I had from that book was talking about how, similar to AI, these voice assistant interfaces have emerged and they've taken on their own personalities, whether it's Siri or Alexa, or in some cases, they're actually representing an entire system like Google. You just call on Google. And I think that's a good paradigm to think about if you're working with voice design or any interactive content, video, etc. Understand what your voice is, and I'm not talking about your brand voice and tone. I'm talking about how does that voice represent a system? How is it engaging in a conversation with the customer in the spirit of reaching a shared goal and working cooperatively in that way? Understand whether the customer should expect to be talking to you as a system or as a person again.
All right. Thank you, Kevin, on answering that question. So, guys, we are short on time. So, let me take one last question from the list of questions that I had, and then we'll jump back to what the audience is asking us. So, and this question is open to everyone in the panel. So, can anyone share a few tips with the audience to humanize your brand using content marketing? Anyone who would like to answer?
I'll go back to my.
Oh, sorry.
I'll go back to my standard answer, which is get to know your customers, right? Talk to them, build personas, profile. I don't care what you call them, but gather information straight from your customers. Think about the words they use, the phrases they use, the perspectives they have, and address those instead of what it looks like to you from the inside out of your company. Okay, there really is something to going outside in, right? And talking to your audience. So that's my 2 cents.
I'd just like to second that. I've found my customers lately are, when it comes to the analytics and metrics thing, they don't consider anything to be almost worthwhile unless they can throw an algorithm on measuring it. And so I want to just agree. It kind of touches on the AI discussion as well. Focus groups, like we used to assume that we had to run focus groups, that we had to do user interviews, we had to use open-ended survey questions or at least do regular surveys, and that's kind of gone away. We're looking for algorithms to kind of replace that, but that's not a thing. That's just not a thing. So yeah, please talk to your users.
And I'll add to that just a couple of yeah. I'll add to that just a couple of quick things. First and foremost, it comes down to making sure you're empowering your customer. That's something we don't often think about. We think about how our end service, our product is going to empower our customers. We don't think about how our content can empower our customers. Content that is all about selling your product or service isn't going to empower your customers. Give your customers very relevant, actionable tips that they can incorporate, even if it means they're not going to become your customer yet. It lets them learn to trust your brand. It makes your brand the brand that helps them do better at their jobs, whatever it might be. So empower your customers. That's a great way to personalize that content. And then the other thing, stop using stock photography. Like stock photography, if you want to humanize your content, like everybody thinks stock photography, that's what's going to humanize my content because it's photos of people. No, it's posed, very kind of archaic content these days in people's minds. We want authentic media. And so the fact is we want authentic, we want candid. If you can take photos in your office instead of grabbing a photo from, from iStock or something like that, go that route. If you can find an Instagram photographer that you want to work with, have that Instagram photographer go take your photos for you. Or use some of the less used stock marketplaces where they're curating stock photography from Instagram, like Unsplash or something like that. But stop using traditional stock photography if you want to truly humanize your brand for your audience.
All right. Thank you so much, Amy. So let me see. There are a few questions by the audience here, and some of them are already answered by Noz. So I'll take few others. So this question is on your screen. Chad, it would be great if you can answer this question. It's on your screen. It says, any tips for utilizing influencers as part of the content marketing strategy? What are the steps to get started?
Yeah, I'm going to be honest with you. We don't really interface with many influencers in our field. I think it is a little, because we're more in the kind of B2B space, that is an interesting space. And I think you got to find the right influencers there and have the right relationships. The biggest challenge I think you're going to face there is authenticity. Because right now people can smell bullcrap from a mile away, right? And so, we see that online with ads that are, content posts and all that sort of stuff starting to blur the lines. What I would suggest, though, and I think this is a trend obviously we've seen for the past 12 months is the micro influencer. So coming back to what we've been talking about, right? Knowing your audience. If you know your audience is a 30 to 40-year-old, suburban mom, find those micro influencers within those communities and start engaging with them and having real and authentic conversations, as opposed to, and I think we all know this, right? Like, big influencers are priced out of the market anyway right now, so it's very hard to engage with them. Micro influencers is where you're going to want to research and really find the right partners for your brand.
And one thing to add on that, if you're interested in doing an influencer marketing campaign, before you do it, go on to HBO Max and watch Fake Famous. It's a phenomenal documentary about how influencers become influencers. And it really sheds light on the fact that in some instances, you could be throwing your money away. So just take a moment. It's a very entertaining documentary, only 75 minutes or so. So watch it. I highly suggest it if you're interested in influencer marketing.
But the other thing I would say is don't overlook your customers. Your customers could be some of your best influencers. And so co-creating content with them, spotlighting them, helping them share their stories. And I'm not talking the flat case studies we all used to do, have them share the warts and all, like we hit the wall when we were implementing, but you know what? Here's how your company helped us solve that, or whatever. People want to hear the truth, what's real, instead of everything's peachy. Anybody who's ever implemented technology knows it's not peachy. For most of the time, there's something is going to go wrong, right? And so, create content with your customers. And that, advocacy programs, I think, outrank influencer marketing, in my opinion, because those are people who've actually solved the problem, right? And they've done it with using your products, but people like the people you're trying to convince when they can see somebody else has accomplished it is huge. So think customers, I think about them first. That's my opinion.
Great. That's a great point of making customers as your influencers. Noz, you wanted to say something?
Yeah, I'm actually going to pass on because I think people, we mentioned that I run the Omnichannel X conference, and I was interviewing Microsoft's influencer marketing manager for Switzerland. And she's basically implementing exactly what Ardith just said. So she runs C-level events, CTOs of major Swiss corporations, and she brings them together to tell their real stories of adoption. And she gets them to say, we did it. These are the challenges we had. This is why it was hard. This is why we didn't want to do it, or this is why we struggled to get started. But this is how we finally pulled it off. And then they facilitate those same organizations running those same events internally. So in a major enterprise, helping their colleagues in other departments who aren't getting the full value out of their platforms to come on board. So, and she actually uses the term nano influencer, people who could influence 1,000 people, not like 10,000, not hundreds of thousands, but 1,000 people in their own company or in their local community, for example. And it really, really, really works.
Look, if you consider that, if you're doing a hefty enterprise sale and you consider the price point, if you had an influencer that brought you 5, would you be over the top or what? You know what I'm saying? So got to think about it in context, I think.
All right, let's take one last question of the session. We are short on time. And this question is asked by Paul and Veronica, and it is around making interactive content. I'm sure this question is going to help other 60 people who are listening to us right now. So the question is, can you comment on what makes a good interactive content and give some examples? Anyone from the panel can answer.
Yeah, I would say that good interactive content is content that helps the person participating with it achieve something that's relevant to them, that they care about. And so like we've all talked about on this panel, jobs to be done. What are the tasks they have to complete? One example would be a value assessment that you can walk them through that helps them understand the value they could get from solving the problem. And if you do it in a way so it's not just the value your product brings, but the value they get from solving the problem, so that they can talk about it without thinking they're being sold to or in strict relation to your product, then you build even more trust by helping them walk through it. An ROI calculator, right? So how are they going to get a return on their investment? The time to value. What are the things they have to address in change, right? Buying is change management, if you will. So what are the things that they really have to accomplish in order to shorten that time to value, and why is that important to them? So think a lot about what are they going to get out of it, before you create it. It's one thing to go take a funny quiz, and answer questions and get back, your vegetable is a carrot, or whatever it is. But it's another thing to actually produce something that has them take away value, new ideas to consider, and actually understand and visualize, how might this work for me? What does it really look like to do it? So think about that, would be my advice.
Yeah, I love that answer.
Yeah, Kevin.
Sorry, I just wanted to add on, I want to re-up that and say what not to do is to go and make interactive content because we all told you to. Don't make content interactive for the sake of interactivity, because what you're going to end up doing is creating a bunch of tasks and busy work for your audience to do rather than tying it into real value. And I think we all know nobody likes busy work and homework.
Yeah, and
Thank you so much, Kevin.
to build
Amy.
off that, if you're trying to identify what value there is, like trying to say, well, what can I create that is going to give value to my customer? Take a moment and identify the hardest questions that exist for them to answer, and basically say, okay, how can I build an interactive experience that gets them to that answer faster? That's really what it comes down to. An interactive experience should get the audience to a solution faster than any other option out there that exists. And so that's really the point of an interactive experience. It's either, we're building one right now for an AC company, an air conditioning company, and it's really just a simple interactive widget that helps the home resident owner basically say, okay, I'll answer 3 questions, and now I know exactly what AC unit I need and exactly how much it's going to cost, and I don't actually have to wait for somebody to come to my house, do a house survey, bid it up right there in my house, and then I'm stuck paying them because they're in my house and I have to say yes. And so it's about kind of taking away the barriers for the end audience, for the customer, and helping them find solutions much faster. That's the type of interactive content you should create.
That was a great point, Amy. Thank you so much for answering that. All right, everyone, that was the last question of the session, and we are already 15 minutes ahead of the time. So before I wrap this session, I would like to give this opportunity to panelists as well once again, if they would like to say anything to the audience before I wrap it up. Chad, would you like to say anything?
Yeah, I just want to say this has been great, and thank you guys. I'm taking notes because I think this is practical for everybody, right? And I know all of us would be more than happy to help the audience today. If you guys want to connect with us on LinkedIn and ask any questions, please do so. And I really appreciate being involved with this. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Kevin?
Yeah, I should do well by my employer and mention that Fionda's a great solution for all problems we've been talking about. So it's a build your own animation platform. It's a great way to create videos. You can even, depending on your hosting solution, create interactive video experiences. And most importantly, you can empower everyone on your team to create media that moves in rich media moments. So if you guys can all be patient with my vamping, I'm going to drop a little link just so everyone can get access to this free trial if you want it. And then I'll pass the mic. Thanks, everyone. This was a great conversation.
Thank you, Kevin. Naz?
Sorry, I had to get to my mute button there. Yeah, no, it was a great session, great conversation. What I loved about this is that we had lots of different types of specialists to give a really diverse kind of perspective on this, but we're kind of all philosophically aligned. So I really like that. Yeah, and if you'd like to learn more about this kind of cross-functional discussion, the Omni-Channel X conference is specifically about that. It's not about you and your specialism or your department. It's about how cross-functional teams can actually work together to get the job done, because none of us do it alone today. And I'll drop a little link in here as well. Yeah. And in the meantime, you can move on to the next person. But thank you all so much.
Thank you, Naz. Emmy?
Yeah, thank you guys so much. I really appreciate you guys taking your time today. Thank you, panel. This was a blast. I love being on panels. I love the opportunity to hear from other experts, and I've learned a ton today, just like Chad said. My publisher would get mad at me if I didn't promote my book. So definitely, if you want to learn about visual content marketing and a lot of the statistics I shared with you today, as well as how to produce great visual content, check out Killer Visual Strategies on Amazon. It was just voted one of the best marketing and sales books of 2020 by the prestigious Porchlight Book Awards. So check it out. Killer Visual Strategies on Amazon.
Do check it out, guys. I'm going to do that after the session right away. All right. Ardat, anything from you?
Yeah, I just want to say thanks to everybody for coming, and thanks to all of you on the panel for being here. It's been great fun and a really fun conversation. It's out of the norm, so like Naz said, it's been eye-opening and fun. So I enjoyed it a lot. Thank you so much.
All right, everyone. This brings us to the end of this wonderful session with Amy, Adat, Chad, Kevin, and Naz. This was indeed a value-packed session, and I hope everyone enjoyed the discussion. Once again, I would like to thank our panelists for taking out the time and joining us for this session. Before I wrap up, I have few things to say. Our next event, we have a lot more events lined up for the coming days. So if you want to register for those events and listen to our expert panel, make sure you visit designhill.com/events and register for all those events. Also, if you are a little late, you will get a recording of this event in your inbox, and also you will find this event on our YouTube channel and on our events page as well. So make sure you check that out as well. Also, last but not the least, all those business owners who are listening to this and would want to build a brand today, make sure you visit Designhill.com. On that note, I would like to thank everyone for joining us here, and I hope to see you again in the next one. Till then, take care and stay safe, everyone. Thank you so much.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you. Bye.